Hey guys, today with the topic, the question of guilt in the separation. I hear pretty much everyone who was separated at different times again and again, how guilty he feels and that it was his fault, but he cannot explain it all. Partly without knowing why he blames himself and it's just a feeling, then again quite clearly the tiniest of reasons, up to and including obvious missteps. All of them have in common that they beat themselves up unbelievably afterwards and are thereby driven into the illusion of action to make up for something. And to that I can tell you, this may be partially true, but the time for making amends is over. The moment the separation was pronounced and possibly even long before that, when the thoughts about a separation arose in your ex. You didn't have a chance to do that and your behavior doesn't change from one day to the next. So everything you want to do just to get her back and then you get used to your everyday life again. So it is not an option to think that by doing such things you can persuade her to get back in a relationship in the long run. Now this is not the statement I want to make in the video, this should just make you realize from the beginning that you can feel guilty all you want, it won't actively get you anywhere with her. Say goodbye to the idea of being able to make her understand that you've acknowledged your, in quotes, mistake and fixed it. That hasn't mattered for a long time, before that she has built one of her many hurdles and it's not worth anything to her right now. But what I'm getting at here is that this is a typical mourning phase. This is more or less the same as the phase of anger. You may feel both of them parallel to each other and therefore you don't know where your head is anymore. Sometimes you curse her for what she has done to you, then again you see all the guilt that you yourself had for it and only wish her back. Two completely opposite feelings that always lead back to the same denominator. The value she has for you and which you want to get back. I will deal with anger another time. Here, I want to talk about the guilt you feel for the breakup, or probably not. Let's imagine your relationship. What guilt could you really have had with the knowledge I am imparting? The most obvious first, you may have betrayed her trust. Cheated on her, lied to her, or manipulated her. The gross shit I talk about from time to time that usually results in pretty abrupt and rash breakups on their part. There it is still most obvious what you have done and no one has to analyze you after the fact what their problem with you has been. You are right that you are to blame. But think the other way around. What ultimately led you to act the way you did? Did you still love her? Did you feel backed into a corner? Or was it possibly because you were used to acting that way? What is my advice to you? Don't go back to such a relationship if you think you love her. Not as you are and not as she is. Deal with your own problems first and foremost, because they will get in your way with everyone else. Either that, or you didn't love her the way you think you did in retrospect. Did you think about breaking up several times before? This can happen, and the reason that you are feeling this way now is solely because her value has gotten a boost for you, because she was able to break up with you and you were not. But who is to blame for love fading or diminishing? It usually does not just in one person but in both. Faster in one, slower in the other, and the one who gets to the point of not feeling enough to move on first is the one who breaks up. I could say that it is nobody's fault, but we know how attraction works and it is mutual. If you do too much, which goes against the grain of your partner again and again, possibly subconsciously, it decreases. If it decreases too much, first desire and then feelings for each other will disappear. This point is usually reached long before the separation and you still have to bring yourself to the separation itself. But the blame for this downward spiral, you have it through ignorance. Because you have acted unattractively and also your ex will have done that as a reaction to it. But if you look back now, you didn't have this knowledge at that time or you didn't consider it important enough to act on it. Your every move was driven by your intuition, your attachment type, and your experience, and it wasn't enough to keep the attraction high enough. So what is the point of blaming yourself after the fact? You weren't ready and this, hindsight is always wiser, or, oh I would have done so and so back then, that doesn't get you anywhere. Also, the apology to the ex would have to come immediately and not forever later, because you get on her nerves at some point. Only you can't really grab it like that and actually don't want a debate that will only hurt you more. You and your ex agreed on a relationship and tried it together. You fully committed to each other and left each other. If the relationship went long enough, you planned a future together, but each of you had the right to end it at any time. You knew that, or at least you should have. Before the breakup, something wasn't right for your ex and she didn't feel as comfortable as she did at the beginning of the relationship. That's her fault as much as yours, because she took you just as you were. You don't need to make a 50-50th thing out of blame, but if we look at the facts, it's never 100% just one person's fault, and even if it were, which it isn't, that realization wouldn't get you anywhere because there is more than one reason behind her breakup that you can do better. Of course, there are things that an apology can make better as it shows understanding. But after the breakup, from your position, it is worth nothing. You can do that if she shows interest in you again to give it an extra push, but again you have to be careful. If she brings it up on her own, you have a clear path for it. If she writes only to see if you are still on it, you push her mindset directly back towards a relationship and push her away from you. What you can do with the guilt is to become aware of where your part was and to work on it completely independently of your ex. You don't need a stage to show what progress you are making. You have to draw the confirmation from your progress from yourself anyway, because you don't have to expect any confirmation from her or others. Do what makes sense for you and work on yourself where it is necessary. You need to put yourselves back together first, because this mourning phase takes away any overview and only allows you to think about her. You can't skip it, but you can work the negative that usually comes out of it into your process, and the more guilt you see inside, the bigger the fields on you that you can address. At the end of the day, I would like to tell you, it takes two to make a relationship. To a separation, only one. Not being able to continue to put energy into your relationship is basically a guilt that the ex will impose on themselves and that they usually take on subconsciously, as much as they want to put themselves above you. It is not necessary to take everything they say and how they ultimately leave seriously, as much of it only causes them to be able to maintain their protective armor and not let you near their emotions. If they move away from you, they feel guilt as well, and knowing that should give you courage. The stronger the bond has been able to grow over time, the more crushing the guilt is in their eyes. You make it easy for them with begging, pleading, and by going on their sack after the separation to let the anger about you take over and to press the guilt further and further. So don't make the mistake of breaking up with them simply to show that you are still the one to talk to about such matters and their view of you may not be true. You like to create an image of your counterpart that you can blame. If you don't behave the way they imagined, they keep their share of the blame and have to chew on it directly. They will not be much better off than you. Of course, they should not feel sorry for you, that would be counterproductive. But they should realize that they made the wrong decision and that there was a very high chance to clarify this with you. Take care, and until the next video.